Welcome back to the Nullify Take, where I've got the TNT takes for you on Australian Survivor Blood vs. Water, episode 20. And what an episode. Let's get into it. Talk about the 5 biggest talking points for this episode. And it was a really interesting episode because we get to see in this episode that Josh is back at camp. Everybody walks back to camp after that tribal council, and everybody is seeing who's left in the game. And Josh realizes that his co-pilot in the game, his cousin Jordan, is not coming back, and this lights a fire under Josh that we have not seen so far in this game. He's looked like he's sat back quite a bit throughout this game, and he hasn't turned against the power couple of Mark and Sam, playing their game for a large part and keeping them safe. And it looked like he wanted to go with that Dio alliance all the way through to the final 4, which would have been very risky for him. But early on in this episode, Josh is very, very angry at those people that are in the Misfits Alliance. It was interesting to see that he called Dave, Juicy Dave, Judas at camp the next day as well, and there was definitely some hurt feelings in the immediate. And for a while there, I thought that he was going to let his emotions run away with him and that he was going to play an emotional game, but luckily he did find a way to relax in the next day and have a bit of a conversation with Juicy Dave and also with Geordie, where they obviously pitched him some ideas. But Josh wants to go out and win the immunity to get revenge, and I think that having that second last pair break up really split this game open. So in that regard, the Misfits Alliance really got a hold of this game. Talking about the Misfits Alliance, it's something that I just thought about right off the bat right now. We've got so many DC characters being mentioned in this specific season of Australian Survivor. You've got Harvey Dent, you've got the Dark Knight, which will be Mark now, and you've got the Joker. Why is KJ not Harlequin if she was the Joker's right-hand person who ended up really pulling this move off in the previous episode? Just putting it out there, something that sort of bothered me. Like, why doesn't she get a nickname? Because I feel like she deserves it after the move she pulled off. Number 2 here is that Juicy Dave now has shown himself to be someone that can go against the majority and think for himself, and he has to decide in this episode if he's going to stay true to this new Misfits Alliance or if he's going to switch back to his former Alliance members and become a part of the top 5 there. But Juicy Dave does recognize that there is too much of a threat left in the game with having Sam in the game. He saw her firsthand act, and that she was going to pretend that she was going to play that idol, and ultimately that is also the thing that got Jordan voted out of the game. And he very smartly pitches that through to Josh when he talks to Josh and tells him that, listen, you could say that I'm the one that turned against Jordan and ended up sending him home, but I was in a bad spot because I was one of 3 people. I thought Sam was going to play the idol, so it was going to be between myself and Jordan. So why not make a deal in that situation to save myself? Which I do think that Josh is a reasonable person, and he thought about it and realized that yes, Sam did put Jordan in a bad spot, and she didn't even burn the idol, which is something that's been stuck in Josh's mind for such a long time. He wanted to work with Sam, he wanted to work with Mark, but he also wanted that idol gone because the power dynamic was off for him personally. So Juicy Dave, I feel like, plays the perfect middle game, floater game between the 2 alliances here, and he uses his power very effectively. There's quite a lot of people in this episode that says that Juicy Dave does not like Geordie and that he would never want to work with Geordie long term because he sees him as a threat. And it sounds like there may be some personal issues even between the 2 where they just don't like each other out on the island. I don't know, or I think more so Juicy Dave than Geordie. And it's funny because he does not put those emotions or the short-term feelings that he has for Geordie and the Misfits Alliance ahead of great strategic play. So I do have to applaud Juicy Dave for making this move. It seems like the right move for him since he was clearly the low person on the totem pole within that alliance. So great work to Juicy Dave here this episode. He makes amends with Josh. It looks like Josh is not holding him responsible solely for that move, and he does end up changing Josh's mind here in this episode. Now, number 3, Chrissy is hard at work here as well in this episode, chipping away at Josh because Josh is such a loyal guy. He wants to stay true to Mark, who he seems to have a great relationship with in this game. They've been working together for a long time in this game, but she also says, listen, the power dynamic is completely off. These guys have got at least one idol. They may have two idols. We need to make a move at some point. Why don't we make this move right now? And again, I appreciate Chrissy for recognizing this and at least having that conversation with Josh to try and change his mind. But I also understand why Josh has been so reluctant, because I can understand that some people might look at this and say, oh man, Josh doesn't want to play the game. Josh doesn't want to play the game. But Josh is also in a bad spot here if that tie 3 that came from the Purgatory twist back into the game have really become this tight alliance. They've had an experience that no one else has had. Where does Josh fit in that plan? Like, I feel like Josh has had power for such a long time in this game, but it's starting to slip away from him, and he's going to become the low man on the totem pole for either alliance if he sort of goes with them. So I understand his reluctance to go over and work with this Misfits alliance, and there's also a big conversation between Chrissy, Josh, Mark, and Sam that happens this episode, which I found interesting, which was more so Mark leading this conversation, talking about the fact that they have gotten there by skill and that these guys have gotten lucky by a twist like Purgatory coming back into the game. And it sounds to me like Mark feels the same way. And I think as a player, it must be tough when you've outlasted and outwitted all these players, you voted them out of the game and they found a way to get back into the game. It must be tough to accept that, but it sounds like Mark is an old school Survivor fan and that he doesn't like players coming back into the game either. And obviously he wouldn't, because he's been in a pretty good spot running his alliance with Josh for quite a while, and this has really muddied the water for him. Now, number 4, Mark wins his second immunity of the season and does so in great fashion. The immunity is one where they have to run back and forth and take a ball, throw it up a ramp, then start building dominoes in a track so that they can knock it over, and the domino needs to fall into a bucket at the end of that track for them to win. So great immunity challenge. I like the twist of having to keep the ball in the air on that ramp. It does show that you have to have a lot of endurance and stamina and mental strength to continue to keep at that, and quite a few people struggled here. Mark was really impressive. He seems to be getting stronger and stronger as the post-merge game is continuing, and I'm wondering if Mark has held back a little bit on winning immunities too early. I mean, obviously people knew he had an idol. A lot of people would look at him and say he's a physical specimen out there, so for him to win too many immunities too early would have put a massive target on his back, similar to how that put a target on Geordie's back winning those 4 challenges in a row. But it does seem like Mark is starting to ramp up and he is going to start winning more immunities as we get to the end game. So also in this episode, we find out that Mark is going to continue to hold on to both of the idols going into the tribal council, and they talk about potentially hiding the idol somewhere. Sam and Mark continues to strategize together on how they would use that, and we've now for weeks seen that they've spoken about the potential of one of them getting voted out and the other one then having 2 idols in their possession. And this is going to become very important in the game moving forward now, because if Mark can win individual immunities and he also has 2 idols in his pocket, there's only 7 players left in the game now. So if he plays it twice, that means he goes to top 6, top 5, and he's guaranteed to get into the top 5 somehow. He just has to win 1 or 2 immunities. So I'm very excited to see how Mark gets to the end game now, because in my opinion, Mark's winning this season. Sam was the only other person, according to the edit, that had a chance of winning this season. Maybe Josh, maybe Geordie to a certain degree. They seem to be doing a lot out there and they're great players, but the edit is really pointed at these 2 for a very long time. So we now finally see who the person probably is that is going to win this game. And I want to see him get there, because he is not in a secure spot at all moving forward in the game. Number 5, Sam is voted out at Tribal Council, and what an interesting Tribal Council we had here, because even going into the Tribal Council, I wasn't fully convinced that Josh was actually going to turn against Mark and Sam here in this vote, and I even thought if somebody changed their vote, it would most likely be Chrissy that is going to do that. And when they revealed at the end the votes, and it was actually Josh who voted for Sammy, I was shocked to see that. But Jordan gave him eye signals or something, and he was annoyed at Sam. So I think that probably added to it. And then also Chrissy continuing to say, "Hey, we need to make this move. We need to make this move." Josh actually goes and does it here. He does tell Mark though beforehand, "Listen, you need to play your idol. The vote is going to come for Sam." And Sam is reluctant when Mark asks her, "Do you want me to play the idol?" She doesn't immediately say, "Yes, play it." She's trying to ask Josh, why? Why would I need to play the idol? But Jonathan steps in here and doesn't allow for them to complete that conversation, and it's over. So that little hesitancy in her saying, "Yes, I need the idol," means she's voted out of the game here in this spot. And I just want to talk about Sam and her game this season. I've seen a lot of negativity online, and I know people are going to comment below she's a snake and how dare she steal an idol and all these kind of things. I'm hoping that that's not how most people feel that watch these videos, because in my mind, Sam has played an exceptionally good game this season. And you can even see at the end here when she talks about her experience in the game that it's been tough on her, and it has really weighed on her having to lie about having this additional idol for as long as she had to lie about it.
The goal for Mark and I is to have one person in that final 3. Does it sting a little bit? Of course, but the heat has been on me for the past 2 weeks, and there's this other side of me that's happy to just wash it off and to not be, public enemy number 1 for a little bit.
And she said there's some sort of relief for her now knowing that the game is over and she can put that behind her and she doesn't have to continue to lie. I think Sam is going to go down as one of the greatest players to play this game. Listen, it's hard for me to say she's a top 5 or a top 3 player of all time. I think there was certain things that she did where she played super aggressive. People picked up on it, and it probably wouldn't have helped her even if she got to the end to win this game. And some people might have felt slighted by her, because the key to winning Survivor is how you make someone feel when you vote them out. And I don't know if Jesse was ever going to be able to forgive her. He celebrated a lot in this episode, obviously, because finally Geordie got his wish and he got Sam out of the game. But overall, Sam played an exceptionally good game. She's a very proactive player. She is someone that's not afraid of making big moves and gives us as an audience something to talk about and see on the show. Like, I would hate to have the whole team out there of players that are like wallpaper and they don't do anything. So Sam, if you ever watch this, you're a great player. Please don't take all this negativity on board. And this is a small outliner of people online that is coming at you that don't matter. The people that matter are the people that are close to you. And I think that anybody that looks at this game and says, this is a reflection of who you are in real life, is out of their mind. This is a game. When you play this game, you should lie, steal, and cheat to get to the end. The trick is just how you make people in the game feel when you send them home, and a lot of people don't have that balance. And I want to say hats off to you. You played a great game and you fell short, but maybe the strategy that you had, taking all these hits and everything coming at you throughout the game, has set Mark up now to win this game. Because if Mark played this season on his own, it is so ironic that the smallest person between the two of you is the person who was the shield at the end of the day. Because I felt like you were a shield for Mark through a lot of this post-merge game, and this is setting him up now to, like you said, take it further and play the idols accordingly to go out and win this game. But hats off to you. Thank you for playing this season. I hope that down the line you will look back at this whole experience in a positive light and not remember some of the negativity that has followed these last couple of weeks. Now, if you got to this point of my 5 top talking points for this episode, thank you so much. Consider hitting subscribe, consider putting a like on it. I believe we're about 9 people away from hitting 500 subs. When we get there, an Australian Survivor buff will be made available to one of the listeners of the show. So comment below, let me know what you thought of this episode. Do you think that Sam will go down as a legendary player in this game, or her move of getting that idol of Jesse will go down as a legendary move? And does that move become even more impressive if it is the thing that at the end of the day makes the difference in getting Mark to the end to win this show? Talk to you guys next time, and thanks for watching.